My name is Kai Hoffman, as he said. I'm the junior mining guy on Twitter. I run Oreninc. I'm the CEO of the SOAR Financial Group as well. Quick show of hands, like anybody listen to a presentation of mine before? Because I've done a few here at the conference. Okay, awesome, thank you. Loyal followers, I love that. Fantastic. But I'm going to do it real quick anyway. Like you've seen those slides before. I'm just going to run through it because it frames the context and the content I'll be providing to you over the next 20 minutes here. Oreninc, we're a data company. We track all financings, equity financings on the TSX, TSXV, and CSE. We have certain criteria I'll get into in a second. We look at only commodities, obviously, and we have an in-house data analyst. We have close to 40,000 deals logged now, and data points as well. It's been insane, and a really data-driven approach, quite unique. There's not too much competition in this space because it is still very difficult to track individual press releases. They're all different. There's no standard roster, so we have somebody manually going over the press releases on a daily basis and log those into our database. Really important, that's why it's on one slide, is really the criteria. No companies over $1.5 billion market cap, and no financings over $100 million. We're purely focused on the junior side of the market. We don't look at any of the bigger companies. That's not relevant to us, and we also don't look at debt equity or debt financings or other packages of that form. We do common and flow-through shares, of course, that we sort of track. One thing that makes us unique is the Oreninc Index. So we have an email newsletter, and it comes out every Monday. We cut it off every Thursday, so it's a weekly overview of how the sector is doing. And we benchmarked it back in January 2011. So you can see the thicker line in there, that's the 100 level. Above it, it's frothy. The closer you get, it's usually healthy. And of course, if you hit the bottom, then there's no market to be had at all, right? Like we've seen that in 2015 and parts of 2022, actually. If you look at the score back there in July last summer, right after this last conference, more or less, the bottom just fell out of the market and there was nothing going on. So the Oreninc Index, this is last week's score. This week, you might have noticed, there's quite a bit of activity in the sector. A lot of money is being raised. Our Oreninc Index is coming out actually today or tomorrow, and we're sitting at 92. So keeping in mind, 100 level is the benchmark. We're sitting at 92. We're getting back to healthy levels. A lot of broker deals, a lot of bought deals. We're at 52-week highs on the bought deal side, and total dollar amount announced as well. It was $269 million last week. So a lot of capital flowing back into the market. Confidence seems to be coming back. Just a bit more on the index real quick. We weigh it with 3 different factors, like, of course, total dollar amount announced. Percentage of broker participation is important. We've seen that change, fortunately, over the last 18, 24 months. Brokers have come back to the mining space. They can make money in the space, and also they don't have any alternatives right now because nobody cares about wheat stocks anymore, and sort of crypto imploded, at least for the time being. So they're not chasing any of those stories right now. Interesting correlation, gold price shot up and all of a sudden we've seen more deal activity. So this is just to illustrate it. It's been an extremely quiet summer and early fall, but once gold started rallying mid-November here, or early November, confidence came back and we've seen a lot more financings happen. Deals announced, the window has opened, and culminating also 57 deals in early December. There was a lot of activity. Of course, a lot of smaller financings, I'll get to that. A lot of lights on financings, or keeping the lights on financings, but the trend was positive. People felt confident to come out again, trying to raise capital. So, dollars raised, let's get into the hard numbers, that what makes us a bit unique, or makes us very unique at Oreninc. We've raised $4.2 billion last year in our sector. It's actually not a bad number, but given the sentiment that I felt the last 12 months, we've actually done tremendously well with $4.2 billion. If you look at 2015 or even 2013, it was only half of that pretty much. So sentiment didn't really reflect investment sentiment, which was weird, because $4.2 billion, as I said, is massive. 3.1 of which was just common shares. 1 billion roughly was flow-through financing, so a very Canadian-specific financing model. So I mentioned banker and broker activity. It's important for me to point that out because it really shows the health of the sector as well, because you can earn fees as a broker. 193 financings last year that were brokered. That is great. That is a really high number. Look at 2019 even, when we had it felt like a much better market than we had last year. And we beat it by a long shot, but again, no competition this year, or last 12 months. we didn't have the wheat space to fight against, or the crypto craze and other like silliness in the markets that we had to look at. Bought deals were still a bit slower. People were slower to underwrite financings, but also it happened. Bigger financings were mostly bought deals. Total number of deals, that's an interesting indicator because it tells you if the numbers drop and we have still a very high deal count, that smaller financings are being done, which is very frustrating to see because those financings often don't create any value. I'll go into that on another slide in a second. But if the overall dollar amount falls, and it has fallen from $5.5 million, which was extremely high last year, to only $3.6 million. Again, we're still beating the very weak times of 2015, 2013, or even 2019. But if the dollar amount falls and the average dollar falls, like, what are they going to create? Zero value. And we're going to talk about that in the next slide. Flow-through financing is also very, very high. I think it also has to do with geopolitical turmoil down in South America. With the governments changing, moving to the left, financing capital is flowing into tier 1 jurisdictions. And since a lot of investment capital is obviously coming out of Canada, it's staying in Canada. It's no surprise that the flow-through part has jumped up quite significantly. So 25% of overall financings, as I said, $1 billion, are flow-through dollars being raised that can only be spent on Canadian projects. Australian companies can raise flow-through as well, but the money needs to be spent in Canada. So that's really important. 2020, it's interesting to compare it actually. If you look at 2020, roughly 17% of that was flow-through. Worldwide situation was completely different. A lot of money was flowing into South America. I loved investing in Peru back in the day personally, but that has completely changed and the numbers show you exactly that. So value creation, I've been saving that, I've been hinting at it. And I counted the deals between or below $2 million and below $1 million. Those are financings, in my opinion, that don't generate any value or very little. There might be outliers. Don't get me wrong. I might be doing unfair justice to some companies. But in general, what are you going to do with $1 million? Your listing fees are $300,000. Your auditors are $100,000. And maybe you want to pay yourself a salary as well, right? Even if you have a small team, there's going to be another $200,000 gone from the register by the end of the year. So you're not creating any value. You're not moving your share price. You might pay a marketer, but that usually goes nowhere because the marketer has no news flow to support the story. $2 million, same story almost. Like, what can you do? Maybe some geotechnical work. You can do some IP. You can do some crab samples, but again, nothing earth-shattering that will advance a project. And seeing 62% of those financings being under $2 million, it's tough. Those companies will have a hard time, even in a better market, because they have no news to support. There'll be massive dilution. They might have to roll back the stock just to get to a level again where it makes sense to raise more money to do meaningful work. Value creation as well. We haven't seen any transactions, any deals. And I've been asked about it this morning in an interview as well. Like, what's holding M&A back? Like, well, we've all seen the valuations in our sector. Like, if you're a mining CEO and your stock was trading at $1, you're not giving away the house for 30 cents. So I think that'll change. I've been hearing quite a bit of chatter here on the floor as well, that there is more activity. There's actually major mining companies apparently walking the floor here as well, looking at projects and transactions. And we all know how the global situation is shaping out in terms of the battery base metals as well. So I think there's going to be more activity. We've only seen pretty much one major deal last year. As the outlier there was the Agnico Eagle Yamana transaction there together with the Pan American Silver. That's the $8.2 billion there in part of that. But other than that, back in November, the biggest deal was a royalty companies merging for $606 million. And then even the top 5 is an asset transaction. It's not a merger. Top 5 M&A is just an asset, just $10 million. So it just shows you that there's nothing going on. I'm curious what December looks like. I haven't seen much. It was fairly quiet. So it should be an interesting spring, to be quite honest. I've sort of highlighted the GDX and gold going up in unison. My point, though, is on the bottom right side is the volume chart. You're not missing anything yet. You still have time to be positioned. Look at the volume in January. It's actually going down on the GDX. We've moved 40% since September last year, but nobody's investing. Nobody owns it. Nobody's looking at it. So you sitting here have an unfair advantage over everybody else out there, just understanding and educating yourself on what is actually going on. You haven't missed anything. It's only starting. You see the money flowing in just the last 10 days. There was nothing going on before. Like, if you look at the index again, I can bring it back up. Nothing has happened. until like 10 days ago. So we're still in early innings. I spoke with Rick Rule the other day. He called it a bit of a relief rally the last few days, because a lot of stocks have bottomed out at the end of the month or at the end of December and put in a bit of a leg up, maybe 20%, 30%. As I said, GDX is up 40%, but the juniors haven't caught a single bid. It's only the developers, the bigger producers. The juniors, half the companies out here haven't caught a bid yet. Half of them also need to raise money, by the way. So, and that'll happen. The window is wide open right now. So, one of the things I heard actually on the floor, and I figured I'd share it here because it fits really well, is one of the banks is just waiting for the Fed to make a decision on Thursday on what the next steps are, because they have a bought deal lined up for a company, and they're just waiting for the Fed to say, okay, 25 basis points, we're done, or at least give clear direction so the bought deal doesn't hit them in the face. So everybody's watching what the Fed and the US dollar is doing, and we're seeing that perfectly reflected in our sector. If you look back, March 16th, first Fed rate hike, markets shut. Financing window closed, like nailed shut. There was nothing going on in our sector last year. You saw it. You're sitting here, you're hurting probably, your portfolios are down 20, 30%. And if you want to blame somebody, I think it might be the Fed and the Fed policies there. That's an easy target, right? But that's sort of the context around what we're looking at. If that's changing, and we've seen the Fed sort of taking a softer stance on policy hike or Fed rate hikes, that's why gold is up, because the market is sniffing that out. It's taking a breather, it's waiting. We'll know more on Thursday. But if the Fed is anything or stays course, and we break through 1940 on the gold front, I think all bets are off. It could be a good time. A couple other things I'm going to run through, because at Oreninc we cover those, we look at it, what is affecting sort of financings and listings. A couple new rules for investors and companies this year. There's a prospectus exemption for issuers, so you can raise up to $5 million in capital without having to offer a prospectus or without the hold period, which is really important. So there's been an exemption that came into effect in the fall. I think it was October. It was sort of properly implemented. They're called life financings. So lister issued financing exemption. You can raise up to $5 million in 12 months, or I think it's 10% of your overall market cap. So take a look at that. As an investor, that's not too bad, especially when the market is running and you don't have the whole 4-month hold period. Sorry, Brent, you're American, so I don't think it really applies, but that could be of interest, especially in smaller financings where you think, okay, like I'm playing a catalyst and I need to get out. That could be of interest. One other thing, and it's not a focus of our talk because I named it Let's Talk About Gold, Making Money in Gold and Silver Stocks, but the critical minerals exploration tax credit, I think we'll see more of that. I said 25% of overall money raised was flow-through money. We'll probably see at least the same amount of flow-through raised this year because of that. You can write off 30% instead of 15% on certain critical metals and minerals. That's come into effect in October. There's still a few guidelines missing from CRA, but already companies are making use of that exemption. The only thing it hasn't changed yet is the flow-through premiums, because the investors are still balking back at the management team saying, well, you can't add more premium to the share issuance, but they still want the 30% write-off. So we might see that. Maybe some stronger management teams will be able to box it through and get some higher premiums and keep dilution in check based on that. That could help. So let's make money with gold and silver stocks. I brought some stock tips as well that are on the next slides. But one of the ideas or opportunities is that we're still in the early innings of a junior bull market. Like, I think we're doing great. Bull market is a strong word, but let's call it an uptrending cycle here. Financings, if you look at them, and I urge you probably to listen to Rick Rule because he's talking about private placements and pitfalls. That's why I'm keeping it short here. But there's financings out there at 3.5 cents with a full 5-year warrant at 5 cents. If you're accredited and have access to that, make sure you double check the management teams, but those deals are great. 5-year, 5-cent warrants. Even if they pivot to a lithium project in 12 months' time, you still have an opportunity. So those are the opportunities that we see in our database in the financing spectrum or space right now. So I urge you to take a look at that. Quickly here, it's only been like 8-9 months since I've sat on the main stage here and gave away some of my top picks. I quickly want to review it and go up to the next 4 top picks I picked for this. Banyu Gold, I think I'm down a cent, so it's down 2%. But they came out with a 4 million ounce resource, run rate of 7 million ounces, looking fantastic up in the Yukon. I've been to the project twice. Still, one of my top picks, I'll get to that. Orezone, Quite a bit of volatility, but they've definitely caught a break now. There's some warrants expiring actually today, so that could be another boost to the share price. So I'm up 4.5% on that. Fireweed Metals has done tremendously well for us. It ran nicely, got hugely endorsed by the Lundins with over $20 million in financing. We're up 62% on that, on a zinc story, not gold or silver. And then Maritime Resources was admittedly a bit of a dud. Financing developer inflation environment was just not ideal. And could have predicted that if I would have looked at the time frame from March to May, that developers just do not stand a chance in that environment. But I still have high hopes for the whole team and this project, the Hammer Down project out in Newfoundland. All right, top 23 picks. I brought 4. I own all 4 of them personally already. I participated in financings for Eris, for example, copper, gold, and Kazakhstan. Not everybody's flavor, but I feel like we have a bit of an underdog here in terms of jurisdiction and company. Only 30 million market cap. Tech just endorsed them as well, gave them money to get to 9.9%. So there's a bit of a technical checkmark set. They raised money. They raised $7.2 million in mid-December, so you won't see a financing anytime soon, and quite a few more drill holes coming out as well, so it could be quite interesting. And as I said, I've been on the ground. I wanted to see what Kazakhstan is like, and I felt very comfortable there. Next one, Banyu Gold. I keep it as a top pick. As I said, 7 million ounce run rate. Infrastructure is unbelievably easy. The project, in my opinion, I'm not a geologist, I'm not an engineer, is one of the easiest projects to mine that I've seen in my life. It's just a flat-lying ore body near surface. Scoop it up, put it away, and extract the gold. Just raised again $12.2 million, so there's no financing overhang or any issue or worries that the company will go extinct because they don't have the money. As I said, they already have 4 million ounces at 0.6 grams, extended the trend to 5 kilometers. It's on the right trajectory. It's already 137 million market cap, but if you believe that they have 7 million ounces, then that's peanuts. Fireweed Metals staying a top pick. The year hasn't even really started for the company, in my opinion. As I said, massive endorsement by the Lundin family. Still over 30 drill holes pending from 2022. They only were able to release 1 hole before they financed and sort of had to close the news release window there because of the financing. So we'll see news coming out, I'm told, any day now, to be honest, on some more drill holes. So I'm really curious to see what that looks like. Season starts only in May, late May. So we'll have to bridge that a little bit, and I think they'll have drill results coming out to cover that. They just raised $35 million, fully financed for this year. I don't think they'll have any problems raising more money with the Lundins on board. Tech also owning shares. And there's a rich private investor out of, I think it's Pennsylvania, Larry Childress, who's supporting them as well, who's just put in, or who owns 11% of the company, all bought in the market. Last one, because I only have a minute left. Africa, Montage Gold. Really like what they're doing. I get really familiar with the project, and it's the only one I haven't been to, but I'm going in 2 weeks. And it's down in Ivory Coast. Management team is phenomenal. They're directly responsible for over $7 billion worth of transactions. They weren't involved. They don't claim credit for something. They were actually responsible for it, which is a big distinction because a lot of people running around here claiming they've discovered Oyu Tolgoi, for example, but all they did was probably flip pancakes in the camp kitchen. So got to be careful there, but they were directly responsible for it. And if you look at the share register as well, you got the Lundins on there, you got Perseus, you got VRIC now on that roster as well. And I own shares and options in that company, so keep that in mind. And they already have 3.8 million ounces. They just put out some drill results last week that sort of really should improve the grade and NPV of the already feasibility stage project, because the 3.8 million ounces is roughly at 0.8 grams, and the results they put out were 70 meters at 2.7 grams and 20 meters of 7 grams. So we should see an improvement there in overall grade and NPV from that. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I'm as I said, the JR Mining Guy on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/SOAR Financial. So make sure to follow us there as well. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming.